Hello, welcome to Fireside with Peter Adkison on Gen Con TV. On this show, we go in search of the untold stories behind your favorite games. And this season, we have teamed up with the Dungeon Masters Guild, who has been introducing us to all sorts of new voices in Dungeons and Dragons. And our guest today, one of those new voices, is Lydia Van Hoy. Lydia has a long list of credits, including the Half Race Handbook and the Adventurer's Domestic Handbook, and lots of others that we're going to get into. And very excited about this. So Lydia, welcome to our show. Thank you for being with us.
Hi.
Hi. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Well, we like to start with a bit sort of biographical. So Lydia, where did you grow up? Where did you go to school?
I live 30 minutes away from the hospital I was born in. So I've lived in Oklahoma for 23 years.
Wow. Have you ever lived more than 30 minutes away from the hospital, or is it your whole 23 years, 30 minutes from the hospital? I mean, that seems convenient.
I've traveled, right? And visited places, but I've always lived right here.
Well, that's great. So how did you so what did you do growing up? Did you play games? Were you in a family? Did you grow up in a household that liked to play games?
Yeah, I actually don't have an introduction to D&D story because my dad is, an advanced D&D player. It's just always been a thing.
Well, that is an introduction to D&D story. So you grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons?
Playing, reading about it,
It was always around you. It was always in the house.
Yeah, it's just always been around. I can't pinpoint when I learned what D&D was.
Oh wow! Well, that's a great story. Did you do you have siblings that was it a big family thing to play, or is it mostly like your dad's friends or whatever?
We've never played together. I have a younger sister, and I don't think she's really interested in playing. It's just something me and my dad talk about.
Right. So did you play, did he have a bunch of friends that he would come over, like gamer friends, and they'd all get Doritos and Mountain Dew and get on Sugar High and play Dungeons and Dragons?
Not really. It's more always been hearing stories about the games in high school and living in small town, rural Oklahoma and playing Dungeons and Dragons. At the height of the satanic panic and everything.
Oh, trust me, I remember it well. I was almost kicked out of high school for playing Dungeons and Dragons during the satanic panic, and I said, "Well, how about if I just promise not to play it anymore?" Oh yeah, and they were like, "Yeah, okay." So, but the cool thing was that I lived 2 blocks from the school, so my D&D group, instead of playing at lunch at school, we just walked over to my place and played at my house, and then walked back to school. Yes, I remember the satanic panic well. So did you did you play it with your dad a lot, or did you discover, did you avoid it and then later in life decided to embrace it without your dad's influence around?
I didn't start playing until maybe not quite 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
We always played other games, just board games or things like that.
What sort of games?
I'm trying to remember what they were called. Pirates was my favorite.
Yeah, I'll move on to a new topic. Sorry.
The only one I remember the name of is Pirates.
Yeah, Pirates.
But that's pretty easy.
All right. Well, that's funny. A card game called Pirates. I was just talking to somebody else. I never heard of a card game called Pirates, other than maybe the GURPS game series of card games that I can't remember anyway. So whatever. So did you so what about school? Did you go to school 30 minutes from the hospital too? What did you study in school?
Yeah. I've been to a bunch of different schools. I never graduated high school, so I have no formal education or anything like that.
Oh, wow. Hey, but you're making it work, right? So,
Yeah.
well, great. Well, yeah, well, good. So, where did you learn the skills that that, I mean, we're going to get into your various projects. So where did you learn the skills that would become useful for you in publishing Dungeons and Dragons material?
I think I'm just lucky because I pick things up really fast. And I just decided one day that I was going to make stuff for my own games, like at home. And then eventually I was like, yeah, there's a place that I can actually like make money off of this. I can, actually get other people to look at it too.
Right. Well, that's great. Okay, so let's go into that. So what was your how did you bridge from being a fan of Dungeons and Dragons casually, and how did you bridge into doing it as a way to make money, as you say?
We needed a way to craft things in my game. So I sat down and I made probably 20 plus pages of just multiple crafting systems to make whatever we could possibly want to make. And then I had started taking commissions to make like classes and subclasses and stuff for people for their games. And I got one and I was like, wait, I have an idea for like an entire book now. And that was my first product.
So what tell me a little bit more about what sort of D&D you were playing. Now, were you the GM? Were you running a campaign?
No. I've run Curse of Strahd myself, and that's all.
Okay, so you kind of bridged into it more as a player than as a game master.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Cool. And so so this crafting, when you say crafting, what do you mean by that? I mean, I think crafting, I think of, I don't know, knitting, woodworking,
basically that.
What sort of
woodworking, blacksmithing, cooking. Eventually magic item crafting, but mostly the boring stuff.
Right. So this you said that you came up there was a situation that came up in a game. Can you tell me about what that situation was that came up in a game, and like what happened that sent you down this journey to creating a crafting scenario?
Yeah. My last full campaign that I played, we had a lot of travel, a lot of downtime, a lot of it's going to take you 3 months to get from here to here, so what are you going to do with that 3 months? And we were like, well, what can we do? What is there?
So you're saying that the secret to running a game with a lot of crafting is to have these long voyages across the sea or by covered wagon or something, and then that'll sort of open the window as opposed to a game where we've been playing 6 months of real time and we've only gone through 3 levels of this dungeon in over a course of a week in game time. That wouldn't lend itself so well to crafting, would it?
Probably not.
Okay, so so what was your first commission? You mentioned that you got a commission.
I had gotten a commission to create a merchant class. They wanted it to be, sort of spellcasty, be able to actually make items as like part of your class and sell those items and things like that. And I made it, and I thought about it for a little bit, and then I made commoner, and then I made a farmer, and then I was like, well, there's nothing really out there like this right now. to just play normal people.
Right. So so this merchant class, so how did you who did you do that? You say you got a commission. Who did you get the commission from? Who
I would have to look. I don't remember.
Oh,
honestly.
no. Okay, sorry.
Tomorrow will be the 1-year anniversary of the first thing I published on DMsGuild. So.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, congratulations. That's great. So what so this led you down a path of doing more like the merchant. So when you say you developed this merchant class, what was it like? Like if I were to look up this class in a book, what would I find there?
Okay, honestly, I hate designing full classes because I think that there's just way too many already, and you can make whatever you want out of anything else. But I do it occasionally just to see if I still can. It's a 3rd caster, I want to say.
Okay.
Basically bard spells, utility, social spells, stuff like that. There's different subclasses for like a traveling pharmacist. Oh, what else is there? I haven't looked at it in a while. I know there's a pharmacist for sure.
Oh, okay. Well,
there's different ways you can either you can craft items, or you can craft sets, or healing items like potions and stuff like that.
Cool. So let's talk. How about we talk about the Half Race Handbook? That was listed prominently in your credits.
Yeah.
So how did you get in? What was the inspiration behind this idea? Or why don't you explain what it is first? What is the Half Race Handbook?
So the Half Race Handbook is every published race as of December of last year, published by Wizards, broken down into a modular system for building half races. So things like half elf, half orc instead of the base half orc, or half goblin.
Right. But without the assumption that half of it is always human. You mix and match any 2 races you like, right?
And the main reason I made it, honestly, was one of our characters in the campaign, the same campaign that we did all the crafting in, was a tabaxi with a white dragon girlfriend. And I was really hoping I would get to play like the offspring in a future campaign. But that was a little too much, so that didn't happen.
Well, that you would not be the first person to create mechanics for Dungeons and Dragons because you hope to take advantage of them as a player. Hey, look, GM, this cool thing I came up with. You should use this in your campaign. Right. And by the way, can I play one of these? Okay. So was this your first published work that on DMsGuild?
The first thing I published was the classes, the commoner classes. And I think Half Race Handbook was probably the 4th.
Oh, okay. So I'm definitely not going in chronological order here, am I?
It was early.
Great. So how did you break down these? You talked about breaking down the classes, and so can you give me an example of how that might work? Like, let's say I decide to I'm going to create a half gnome, half tiefling. What happens?
So basically, tieflings in Forgotten Realms are, the tiefling half is always dominant. So all of the traits are split into the traits you would get from like the dominant genetics and the traits you would get from whatever's recessive. So you would find like your dominant tiefling traits and then your recessive gnome traits and then anything like related to the sub races and stuff in between there.
So in some cases it's predetermined. Tiefling is a race that will always be dominant. But in other cases you might just decide as a player which race you want to be dominant. And
right. I've gotten a lot of questions on Twitter and on the product page about like, oh, well, which one would be dominant? And I mean, honestly, it's whichever one you want. You know, sure. You're making the character. I just gave you the way to do it.
By the way, Honey Badger on chat says the commoner is a really good class. So you're smiling.
Thank you, Jackson.
So what about the commoner class that inspires Honey Badger to go out on a limb for it?
Let me get the subclasses in front of me again.
Well, I'm not trying to trick you up.
I cannot remember everything. I wish I had the better memory.
Maybe Honey Badger will save the day and come in and explain. Okay, well, we have a different question. Oh, wait.
All right. The commoner has guards, politicians, and urchins. So it's
guards, politicians,
and urchin.
Okay. Oh, so those are like
right. It's not magical or anything like that. It's just you're a common person. You're a normal person. And here's how that and training manifests as a D&D class.
Right. But you can go up levels, right? As a commoner? I mean, you go up levels
it's full 1 to 20.
Right. Okay. So you can go up levels and become, I'm a 20th level commoner.
Right, but you're just
whatever.
You're like a really powerful town guard or something. You're not a trained fighter.
You're the king of the urchins or queen of the urchins or what have you. Yes. Okay, so we have a question from chat from Ask Ski. What is the most fun, festive, or creative module you have ever made?
I don't write adventures. So I don't have a module.
Oh, well, let's just scratch out the word module and just put Dungeons and Dragons supplement. There you go, supplement, yes.
Oh, what is my favorite, honestly, the most fun and the most creative is Budding Baba's Growing Hut. It is only about 10 pages, 12 pages.
Now, Baba, is this related to Book of the Budding Babas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the first one.
Okay,
it's full rules for growing your own and using your own chicken-legged hut with floor plans and everything.
What did you say? Chicken-legged hut?
I did.
What is a chicken-legged hut?
A Baba Yaga hut.
A Baba Yaga hut
with the chicken feet.
Oh, I see. Well, okay. You're embracing your craft. I will tell you that. That's nicely done. I cannot show you a tattoo of a magic card, I gotta say. Okay.
I don't have any either yet.
So is the now okay? First of all, let's get serious for a moment here. Baba Yaga is from Russian or Ukrainian mythology, right? Did her hut have legs, or is this something that Gary Gygax or one of his disciples
it had
made
chicken feet.
It had chicken feet. The hut had chicken feet. Is this because it could walk around? Was it ambulatory? Oh, okay. I mean, that's the funny thing about D&D. You never know what's historically accurate or something that somebody took some creative license on along the way. Okay, so this book has the full stats on how to you said grow your own hut. You grow it like in a garden.
I'm
sorry if I'm getting into
garden.
This isn't spoiler material, am I? Like, I'm not getting
like
into
from an egg, like from a baby hut.
Oh, from a baby hut. Okay. So now is the hut elevated and the legs come down? Is that the idea? I mean, like if you're down low, can you see to the other side of the hut through the legs?
The hut is on top.
Yeah, the hut is on top and these legs come down. Is there like a ladder you use to, or do you just climb up the legs to get inside?
It could be a ladder. It could I guess it could crouch down.
You could, or it could, oh yeah, of course, it could crouch down and let you up. Like that would be a polite thing for the hut. If your hut is well trained, yes, it's well trained, and it will crouch down. Okay, so Amaro Blade, aka Zenrender, has sent us a link to the budding Baba's growing hut. I know I'm live and I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to click on it real quick just for the heck of it.
This is from the product page.
Okay, right. I missed this one in the I don't think you listed this as one to talk about.
I don't think so.
And here we are talking about it. I hope I haven't upset you.
No, I love it. It's just not big and exciting like most of the others.
I think it's pretty exciting. I gotta say, I like the budding Baba. It's a tongue twister too. I'll say that. Okay, so if you want one of these huts, first of all, you got to find an egg, right? And then you go plant it in your garden. And so does the hut get bigger? I mean, does the hut go through like a whole
yeah, there's a whole
life path.
It levels with the character.
And then it can have baby Baba huts later on.
Sure. Why not? The more the merrier.
Is there a pairing process involved here between
I'm assuming there's a really complicated like mating dance.
Yeah, well, they have the feet and all. Yeah. Well, you don't know? You created it. You should.
Like I said, it's only 7 pages. So.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. 7 pages. It wasn't quite enough to get into the obscure mating rituals of the.
Maybe I'll do that next.
Yes, part 2. I think there would be some demand for it. Yeah, let me know. I would invest in that Kickstarter. Okay, I suppose we should move on to something else. Well, this is a nice segue to a product that you did list, the Book of Budding Babas.
Yeah, that is all subclasses. There's a barbarian, there's all kinds of stuff. Bard, College of the Crones.
But what's the topic here is well, it says, are you a good witch or a bad witch in the marketing in the product page? Is that how does this fit?
They're just fun subclasses. It was made for an itch jam, like just a game jam that was witch themed.
Okay.
And so I just churned out a handful of subclasses that are all Baba Yaga themed.
So subclasses of what class?
There is a bard, a cleric.
Of any class.
Barbarian.
Right. They're not all subclasses of the same.
Right.
Okay. So what makes a subclass Baba themed?
They all have just some sort of weird callback ability to Baba Yaga. There's some that can summon her mortar and pestle that she rides around in. Some get the cooler, timey, mess with the time abilities. They all relate to her abilities in some way.
Now, did you do some research into Russian mythology about Baba Yaga?
I've looked into Baba Yaga a lot. I also referenced a lot of the I want to say it was 3rd edition.
Okay.
When the dancing hut was
you can say that.
scattered out.
Yeah.
And so I referenced, what had actually been made. There's a similar sort of Baba Lysaga from Curse of Strahd, who has a similar hut and similar abilities.
And so what do you recall what you ran into when you were researching the mythology? Like I'm interested in what the Russian, what medieval or dark age Russians, who they thought Baba Yaga was.
So it's really conflicting, and I love Baba Yaga, so I can talk about it like forever.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
There's some stories where it's just, evil old hag that lives in the wood and maybe eats children.
Right.
And then there's some where she's more of a like protector figure.
Mm-hmm.
Of like predominantly women and people in like abusive situations.
Oh, really?
And so in some she's more of like a protector and a guide. All of my Baba Yaga products are actually dedicated to one of my grandmothers.
Oh.
Who was very, if there was like a modern person to be a Baba Yaga, it would be her.
Oh.
Without a doubt, hands down.
That's fabulous. That's wonderful. I have a special place in my heart for one of my grandmothers as well. So I can sympathize with that. Well, let's talk about the Adventurer's Domestic Handbook, because I got to say this one really looked interesting. Oh wait, before that, we got a question from chat. What inspires you to write towards the spooky things? Goblins, Baba Yagas, Scooby-Doo module, and yeah.
So goblins is all my dad's fault. We are a green skin household. Like that's just, I just love goblins. There's no reason. I just do. Baba Yaga, like I said, mostly inspired by my grandmother.
You're in good company. Richard Garfield always liked goblins too, and so does Jennifer Clark Wilkes, who was a D&D editor back in the day. Yeah, so there's something about goblins. Well, and you could call that puppet I have a goblin. Yeah. So, okay, that was going into okay. So tell us about the Adventurer's Domestic Handbook. This is another product of yours that looked really interesting to me.
It's, I don't want to say my favorite, but it's one of my favorites.
It's my favorite so far. Okay, so far.
I had such a great team writing it with me. Everyone who contributed was just awesome. Like we had Sadie Lowry. She wrote, she did art, she edited like nearly everything. It was so much fun to make, and it grew to be way bigger than it was originally supposed to be. It was originally just supposed to be a little thing.
By the way, Sadie Lowry is going to be our guest on Fireside on November 11th. So if anybody out there wants to hear more about, wants to do a fact checking of what Lydia is about to tell us, save your questions for when Sadie gets here. Okay, well, tell us about the book. What's in this book? If somebody buys this book, what's cool about it?
So there's not really rules for player relationships and NPC relationships, but there's more a chapter of guidelines.
Okay.
Mostly on, consent in your role play, making sure everyone at the table is on the same page, and how to navigate like romantic relationships carefully at the table.
Okay.
Sierra, who is another writer, she wrote amazing mechanics for actually including pregnancy and raising children.
Okay.
Kayla Band, she wrote a huge section on running businesses, starting your own business, building a house from the ground up. There's just, I think there's a subclass for every single class.
Like, you could maybe be a game manufacturer.
There's just a little bit of something for like every bit of domestic life that you don't really see in D&D.
Right. So is there any one of these that you feel like you remember well, that you could go share some details about?
The home building and the business systems are both very, very cool. It tells you, you know, exactly how long something's going to take. It has reasonable prices that aren't just like, you know, super out there like some stuff can be. There's rules for like maintaining your property, you know, what happens if you're gone and like squatters take up residence in your house because you're off adventuring.
Nice. Well, at least somebody's watching the place, right?
Right. Right.
Come back and somebody's hawked all your furniture.
Yeah, exactly. The businesses have rules for like, you know, how many customers you're going to get in different parts of towns or different sizes. You know, you're going to see less business in a village than like a major city.
Right. Sure.
And then the NPCs are my favorite part.
Oh,
They
yeah?
have long, detailed like biographies. Ooh, I need to plug myself in to charge. Hold on. Uh-oh.
Oh, that's okay. We'll keep it going.
But they have long biographies. They have sections about, you know, their mannerisms and personality and how they react to different situations.
Right.
And like just how to romance all of these NPCs.
Well, that sounds fun. I have I think that I honestly think this is really interesting. I always find systems for things sort of outside of what's covered by the core rules and sort of the standard, let's go to the dungeon, kill monsters, collect treasure. I find to me, it's one of the things that's great about role-playing games is that it can be such a big umbrella that so many things can fit under, and you can play a game in so many different ways. So that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of the reasoning behind it is, you know, it can be really cathartic for people to role play these like familial relationships and everything, and it can be a sort of therapy through your role play.
Did so if someone were to say, hey Lydia, I want to use this in my campaign, would you recommend that you basically create a new group where everybody plays a character like this, like maybe, okay, you're all playing individuals in a village and this story is going to be about village life, and so is that how you would do it? Or we'd say, okay, this party has a fighter, a thief, a wizard, and a lumberjack.
Yeah, I think it fits fine into normal games. A lot of our subclasses are things like the Paladin Oath of Forged Bonds, where your oath is being bonded to like the found family that you find in your adventuring party.
Okay.
And I think that maybe, you know, you'd probably want everyone on the same page roleplay wise, but I don't think it would be out of place just fitting it into your normal campaign.
So if you're a merchant, do you have abilities that would help you in a fight? Do these classes have abilities that would help them in a fight?
Yeah, all of the commoner classes are made to be like fully functional 1 to 20 classes.
Okay.
They're just like phrased differently.
All right.
Sort of. Like the merchant has spell casting on the same level as like a ranger or paladin.
Sure.
The commoner gets, you know, if you're a farmer, you get unarmored defense. Or you're really good with improvised weapons because you're used to working on a farm.
Yeah. All right. Well, great. Oh, that sounds fun. That sounds. We have a question. Is there a command for their socials from It's Kelky? I'm not quite sure I understand the question. Maybe you do. No, sorry. If you can clarify that question for us, would love to get it into. Okay, so all right. Well, let's move on to. Well, I'm looking at Master of None. I just had a brief question about this class. This book. This is about multi-classing variants, right? And role playing. I noticed that when I read the product page on this, I noticed it had a includes a history of multi-classing in Dungeons and Dragons. Did you? I don't know if you worked on that part of it or not. Oh, I was like, oh, for an old grognard, that sort of it sent me into a momentary tailspin. I'm remembering in AD&D all the confusion from, okay, there are multi-class characters, and then there are characters with 2 classes, and those are 2 different things, and one of them can't be, and the other one only humans can be, and like
they went into all of the, you know, traditional multi-classing, gestalt leveling with the 2 classes side by side, and they went into, you know, how all of that worked, and there's actually new rules for doing the, you know, 2 classes side by side.
Oh, all right, cool. So what did you work on in that product? Do you remember?
Yeah, I designed the feature swapping, which is, you know, basically multi-classing as it is now, but instead of, you know, taking a level in a new class and using that hit die and, you know, relying on those save proficiencies and stuff like that, you just take the class ability you want and replace one of your class abilities with that ability.
Yeah. Cool. Well, when I saw this, I couldn't resist breaking out my old AD&D Player's Handbook just to refresh my memory on what the old multi-classing rules were, because and I read across this thing like I totally forgotten about, but in the rules from AD&D on characters with 2 classes, that you would leave one class behind and pick up the second class, and if you went on an adventure and you used an ability from your first class, then you didn't get any experience points for that adventure.
Oh no.
Harsh.
That's one way to discourage it.
It's funny. I think Dungeons and Dragons has a sort of a long challenging history with the whole topic of multi-classing. Like it's just a topic that Dungeons and Dragons has always wrestled with. So we will leave that topic behind and move on. Okay, how about Fight to the Top? Tell us about Fight to the Top.
Okay. Willie worked on this one with me, so you could ask him about it too.
Oh, okay.
And find out if I'm secretly like awful or something. Fight to the Top, 95% of all sales benefit the NAACP.
Okay.
Why are my windows not working? There we go. With even the drive-through cut going to NAACP, they were really great. DMsGuild was with working with us to get more of that money to charity.
Nice.
And it's an adventure. it's sort of modular. It's got the 3 main areas, which are the artist who did her map did such a good job. And you've got like the big upper area where, you know, the big nobles and all live. And then you've got the middle area that's okay, but not great. You know, it's nowhere near the level of the upper tier. And then you've got the lower level, which is overflowing sewage and, you know, houses built out over the water that have collapsed. And then you go out even further and you've got the fields where people, you know, basically work and sort of survive, and that's all.
Right.
And the whole story.
This module is about status and classism, right? I mean, these levels are more powerful than the levels below them and exploit them, and
right. There are guard constructs, which will become more prominent, you know, in the upper levels where they actually have something to protect. And then, you know, big heavy duty riot guard constructs for the ending and to, you know, pose a bigger threat.
Right. Great. Okay. So so then I assume, is it the theme then for the players to basically, you know, raise up against the machine, you know, try to fight against you know, the authoritarian, you know, overthrow the despot? Is that the campaign idea?
Yeah, the entire adventure sort of revolves around different encounters. So you can pick and choose which encounters, you know, your players actually encourage. Or not encourage. Gosh, encounter.
Yeah.
And it's being part of you're part of the resistance. You're working with them to organize this like big march through the city. And you get different little quests where it's like, go, you know, hide stuff along the route to keep people safe, or
right.
Help the dog deliver supplies.
So Honey Badger is back, and Honey Badger writes, "Wow, this sounds like a cool adventure. Are there any character options like this?"
There are. They wrote one of them. There's a Bardic College of Protest. Oh no, don't fall. There's a Bardic College of Protest, and then there is a Paladin Oath of Resistance that are both really, really great. They sort of follow the same themes of the adventure.
But a bardic, a bardic would be like writing protest music, sort of like Crosby, Stills, and Nash, or Michael Franti of
right. You get proficiency with calligrapher's supplies, I believe, so that you can make fancy signs too.
Oh, good. Yeah, you write protest signs. That's awesome. That sounds, Bob Dylan the Bard. Yeah, you got it. Little Spock. Way to go. Oh, that sounds great. And so what was your role in this project? What did you do?
I was the project manager. I got everyone together and reached out to, you know, prominent Black creators in the DMsGuild space to make it, you know, just do the best we could.
Right.
And sort of represent what we're dealing with in the real world while not being like too heavy-handed with it.
Well, good.
I did some of the writing, but I mostly just left that up to the writers I found, and they all did amazing jobs.
That's great. That's cool. Yeah, Willie says you kept us on point, so good. Do you like project management?
I do. I see a lot of people complain about it being difficult, but I haven't had any problems with it. I really enjoy it.
Yeah. Good. It's funny. Somebody in chat wrote, I don't know. Let's see, Amaro Blade. I don't know if CSN is Lydia's playlist. They wrote, you know, Vietnam protest music back in the 70s, you know. So Oh, ASCII says Lydia is such a force for good in the community. So that's great. Clearly, you are highly regarded. You have a lot of people in chat singing your praises or typing your praises.
Thank you.
They might be singing too, but I can't really tell that honestly from here. Oh, excuse me. Let's catch my breath. Okay. Supers and Sorcery. This is a Kickstarter. Is this still going or is this done?
No, it ended.
It
ended at about 400% funded.
Yeah, it looked like you guys blew past your goal.
Yeah. Really quickly.
Yeah. So this is okay, I gotta ask you about this because I mean this is from the title. It sounds like a campaign setting, maybe, or an adventure setting, where you're integrating two genres, fantasy and superheroes. Is that
it's a 5e campaign setting. It's its own it's its own like really neat world with all of these portals and superheroes.
So like
as if being an adventurer wasn't good enough.
Right. Like portals to other worlds or something? Is that the idea? Is this
Yeah, the idea is that all of these portals open into different worlds or, multiverses or really anything you want them to open into, and all just kind of dump out in this one area that's really like a meld of all of the different things that have been introduced through these portals.
Is it a so is the are the ideas of the superheroes in the fantasy, are they coming from other worlds, or is one of them is their fantasy elements resident but the supers are invading, or how does this
and the supers are sort of, I can't think of the right word, but native to the setting.
Okay, the supers are native, and so you have fantasy characters.
The setting was sort of created by all of these portals and everything coming in through the portals.
Okay.
To the best of my memory. I didn't write that part, so.
It's okay. It's okay. Nobody's gonna tell you different. It's all right. It's like Lydia worked on this project, and this is what she said. That's no. We have a question from Communist Booty Shorts. I hope I said that correctly. Where can we get access to this module?
So it is not. We're about halfway through layout right now, and it's beautiful. It looks so good.
So it was a Kickstarter, so maybe there's a way to buy it and sort of post offering sort of thing.
Right. It'll be being published. Oh no, I'm not logging in for that. It'll be published on DriveThruRPG with the option for print as well. Okay,
so there you go. All right, CBS. I watch on DMs on DriveThruRPG, and you'll have your chance to get it. So I gotta ask, in this since you are mixing two genres, how do you do that? I mean, did you think about it philosophically, like in the sense that what does fantasy mean to you, and what does the superheroes genre mean to you, or do you just like, oh, screw all that esoteric nonsense, let's just give people powers and spells and let them go after each other?
The people who did all of the actual setting writing put a lot of work into it. You can tell that there's a lot of thought behind the different organizations and how this city of Beacon actually works with the fantasy elements and the superhero elements together.
Cool. Yeah, it's interesting. Interesting to think about. Like, did the abilities mechanically work differently? Like, do superhero abilities mechanically work differently from, say, spells of like fantasy? Like D&D is based on fantasy, and so
right.
Yeah,
it's what you would expect from a 5th edition setting. It doesn't, break hard away from the rules or the way mechanics work or the mechanics that you already know and are used to.
Right.
There's a little bit of extra for your superhero origin and stuff like that, but it's very much in line with what you'd already expect playing 5th edition.
Okay. So we have a question from Amarblade. Do you know of in real life gaming groups, or are we all trying to all DM online with Zoom, etc.?
As far as I know, everyone I know is doing it on Discord. Seems to be Discord, Roll20.
Yeah.
Soon King's Game instead of Roll20 soon.
Yeah, I've been playing on I'm back. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, so I play I play on Discord and I play on Roll20. I also have my wife and I are in what we call a bubble with another couple who live in we live in a condominium building, and so there's another couple in our building, and so we play in person, and so yeah, but we're in Seattle, so I don't think that's I don't think you can run over and join our group.
It's probably easier to find a group in Seattle, I would imagine.
Well, back before, when the pandemic's over, you just go to a local game store and meet people and go to meetups and that sort of thing. So, yeah. Well, we're running out of time. We have a little bit more time. I mean, before we start to kind of wrap up, is there another project that you would like to talk about? Oh, Peter, I wish you'd really ask me about this project.
Yes. Twitter at We Are King's Game is going to be very exciting to follow. There's a lot of lore coming, side quests coming out on the Twitter. It's going to be a sort of MMO virtual tabletop.
Okay.
Hoping to replace other virtual tabletops.
Okay, so this is a software project to communicate. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it's also its own built-in setting.
Okay, can you tell us more about it, or are you under deep secretive non-disclosure agreements, black
well, we've already got a little bit on the Twitter. The world of Nefander revolves around these different energy types called sight, which are sort of like your font of magic, where you draw power from the hells or the fae or just the earth itself.
Okay.
And semi-recently, there has been an influx of races being thrust out of the hells known as demonkin, which are very exciting. And I don't know how much I can share about those, so I won't talk about them too much, but they are very cool and they're very exciting.
Okay, cool. Yes.
There's going to be original races. There's going to be, all new subclasses.
I don't know if Beetlespock how much authority Beetlespock has, but Beetlespock is assuring you, go ahead, Lord, go ahead. Oh no, that's ASCII. You have so many friends here; it's hard to keep them.
It's just it's going to be a really neat setting. I think it's very different from what's available now.
So can you tell me more about that? I mean, you described it as a platform, but also as an MMO and a setting. So I'm picturing something like
it's going to have, ways to find a group, not something like, Roll20 has a little bit of forums and game applications and stuff like that, but, more matchmaking where, you make sure your play styles jive. Guides for DMs new to using a virtual tabletop or just new to DMing in general.
So, but you say it has a setting. So like, okay, when I think of Roll20 or Discord, I think of a platform where you can go really super broad into not just D&D, but any RPG setting. I've even heard of people playing board games on Roll20. Oh God.
Right.
Okay, great. But it sounds like you're doing the opposite, which is saying, no, we're not even we're going to go narrower than D&D. We're going to go right down to a setting. And if you come to this platform, it's to be in this setting. Am I on track?
Right. It's hopefully in the future we'll have, you know, more settings, more systems to choose from. But right now we're really focusing on 5th edition and our unique setting.
I mean, I
sort of
think,
like if you were to log into WoW, you would expect to, you know, meet up with people and play in
right
their world.
I think this is very intriguing. I would you know, I think that it might be a great strategy to not do other settings, to say, hey, this, and take this the setting that it is. You know, there's multiple ways of having business strategies, and one is to pick a niche and go deeper than anybody else. Nobody can keep up with you. So, you know, an MMO that is really role playing, as opposed to like MMOs that we know and love, that are not role playing, in my opinion. That seems like a pretty interesting idea. All right. Well, we are running out of time. I'm sad to say. Oh my God, people are starting to cry. Don't. Oh, it's okay. We got more coming. We got Willie coming up next. So I have one question I want to ask you, Lydia, in closing. So what do you hope to bring to Dungeons? I mean, Dungeons and Dragons is this amazing game and this amazing tradition that's gone back, you know, for many, many decades. A lot of people have worked on it, and but you are well, you're very sharp and you're very creative. What's the mark you want to leave on this game?
I always say that like my main focus is more inclusivity, not only in the role playing that you're doing, but like the worlds you're playing in and how you interact with the world, and you know, the NPCs being unique and disabled or gay or you know, something that's not fair really.
Right.
But also inclusivity in the people writing your material.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's absolutely fantastic. I think the more variety, the more, I mean, you know, Dungeons and Dragons, in spite of its very sort of a certain stereotype of who played Dragons back in the 70s, of which I will raise my hand and say I was one. Even in those days, we longed for everybody to play.
Right.
There was no, we were, you know, there was nothing cool about being a geek in 1978. Well, it was cool, it's just nobody else realized it. And we always were eager to show the game to whoever might want to play it. And now what you're doing and others, it's becoming a reality. And I applaud what you're doing. I've really enjoyed our conversation. You're doing great work, and it was a pleasure to have you on the show with us today.
Thank you. It was very nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you too. All right, well, that wraps up another episode of Fireside with Peter Adkison here on Gen Con TV. Our next episode is in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Yes, we're having a double header today, double feature, Spire side by side. Our next episode will be with Willie Abiel. And so I'm going to save you the rest of my outro until after that show. And I'm going to run and get something to drink and take a quick break. And we'll be back in 10 minutes. And thank you again, Lydia, for joining us. It's so great to have you with us.
Thank you.
And best wishes in your future endeavors.
Thank you.